Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about The Strain, Season 1. So this is a show I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time. I just haven't really gotten around to it only because I've only seen this once in its entirety. And I only own Season 3. Last October, I reviewed episode 8. That's my all-time favorite of all time in the entire series. And so I also reviewed episode 1 a few days ago. So now let's get to it. So this show came out in 2014 and it was created by Chuck Hogan, and Lord, I'm about to mispronounce this one dude's name. Guillermo del Toro. And so they created a comic book or a novel, what do you call it? Well, a novel. And then they also created comic books based off this. It was based off 3 novels and it lasted for 4 seasons. Every character you pretty much see in season 1 that's like a main character appeared in the book, except for Dutch. She was created for the show. And for the most part, it follows that of the books and everything. They change a little here and there, but not much. This is a very, very, very good, very unique take on that of vampires. Now, I'm not sure when the book came out, but when you watch this, you will see it has vampires that look very similar to the ones in Blade 2. That is because the Del Toro, he directed Blade 2. So the vampires are very similar. They have slight differences, but they all have that long tongue. Now, vampires in this show are called Sequoia. I like how they changed the name of ancient monsters and stuff. Like Underworld had lichens for werewolves, and they have Sequoia for vampires here. Pretty much when you see vampires either in TV shows or that in the movies, they're relative the same. Pretty much they're either like a supernatural being, like a master, infects one person, infects the other, a Dracula type person, a bunch of biting, a bunch of blood sucking. The other person has to bite and suck your blood back and then die, turn into a vampire. Or it's some type of weird genetic thing and a virus, stuff like that. But this is really unique. It still has that supernatural element, but the way the vampires attack is unique and different. I will say this is probably the most unique and different take on vampires since Twilight. I don't like Twilight. I can respect it. I think the first movies are alright, but kind of weird. But for the most part, I just don't like it. And the actress who plays Nora, she was actually in 2 of the Twilight movies. So she's all about those vampires and stuff. But for the most part, I just don't like Twilight. But don't worry, there's no sparkly vampires here. Oh no. Like I said before, these are on the second Blade movie. They have bald heads. They make a weird chirping noise. Their face is so decayed looking. And they open their mouths and shoots out a long 6-foot tongue and everything. But what's so unique about it is what infects you. Basically, your blood turns into a milky white pussy type stuff. And when the long tongue hits your neck or whatever part of the body, it infects you with tons and tons and tons of worms. The size, length, width of a hair. I think they call horse worms or whatever. But they are the width of a hair. And the thing about these worms is that if you kill a vampire, doesn't matter how you kill it, you hit it, if its body busts open and parts of it splat, say you punch it really hard in the face or hit it like with a hammer and it cuts a piece of your skin off and then it gushes out, the worms gush out too. You shoot it, it splats, worms gush out. And if the worms get on your body, they will crawl through your skin and they are impossible to pull out. They will go through your skin, your eyes, your nose, your mouth. They are literally relentless in everything. It is extremely hard to kill these things. You have to get up close and strike them down with silver in the head, in the chest, mainly the head. After you chop the head off, and you have to chop the head off in order for it to die, then you have to burn its body. Now, sunlight will affect it too. It will burn its skin and kill it. The master is literally 9 foot tall, extremely thick. These vampires are fast. They are really strong. And they constantly feed. It is insane, like I said before. Also, if you drink the pussy white blood of theirs, which is called the white, it will restore your health. Like say you're dying of cancer, it will literally restore you. And there's a way to stay immortal by the worms. I forgot exactly how. That's in season 2 they explain. Like I said before, I've only seen this once in its entirety. So once I get to season 2 soon, then I'll be able to tell you then. But that's how Sarzakian stays like immortal. Because he was back in the days of World War II and stuff and still alive. And, you know, I gotta give it up to these people, man. When they created Vampire Boy, they created vampires and stuff. And so, let's get down to a couple of characters. I'll give you the baseline of who the characters are. And then, oh my bad, I'm so tired. And then I'll give you the rundown of the entire season in just its entirety. Now, the Master. The Master looks ugly. He's 9 foot tall. He's been around for thousands of years. He infects people with his worms. He is the ultimate vampire. And so what he likes to do is get a bunch of followers that are humans. He turns a bunch of them. He likes to have a right-hand man that he infected with his pussy white blood. And so this was the German dude. Now the Master is extremely hard to kill. No matter how many times you shoot him or whatever, it's hard to kill him. Sunlight will affect him and wound him, but he can sustain the sunlight. But he has to herp and run into the shadows. Now the Master will live for a long time, but if you kill him, he will just transfer his consciousness to that of another host. He has the ability to see through the eyes and hear through the ears of that of his vampire host. So if you're hunting him down and they see you, he would know exactly where you are. Eldris Palmer. He is a old man who is dying. His organs are failing him, and he constantly has to have organ replacements. When he has organ replacements, he likes to keep his old organs in like jars. Ew. And so he's wealthy. He's a businessman. He is corrupt. He has police under his thumb, the mayor, people at CDC, like that type of person, you know. And he works for the vampires. He wants to well, no, wait. He controls the CDC, not the mayor yet. I don't think the police, so my bad. But he only controls like the CDC and stuff like that. He hires people to do bad stuff for him. He's very rich. And so, like, what is it? So he wants the Master to make him immortal. When he's on his deathbed and everything, the Master gives him the white and it heals his body. But of course, that does not make him immortal. He wants to be a full vampire and immortal. Thomas Idris. He is a vampire back in World War II, a German Nazi. And so, like, he is very evil, very dangerous, but he's a vampire who looks human. It turns out that he makes himself look human. He looks decayed and everything like a typical vampire, and he doesn't have a nose. So he puts on prosthetics, fake teeth, fake hair, and makeup and stuff. Because the master allows him to talk and have his consciousness. Basically, when you turn into a vampire, the first thing you want to do is find your loved ones and go home. Then after that, the master takes over and you're just a drone. But he allows certain ones to have their individuality. And Thomas is one of them. Now, he has a history with one of the main characters, Sarzakian. Basically, Sarzakian is Jewish. And of course, he puts them in a camp. And, you know, he does a lot of bad stuff. But then when he gets drunk, he kind of like opens up a little bit, but he's directly evil. Then at some point back in the day, when the Americans helped win the war and the German people started fleeing and stuff, he wanted the master to turn him, and he did. He is the one who gets everything done, working in the shadows and hiring people and paying them off. Abraham Sarzakian, he is an old man, Jewish. He was back in the Holocaust. He's a survivor. And he's been basically kind of immortal. He consumes either the white or the worms, I believe. I had to watch season 2 to figure out. They don't explain that in season 1, but I'm just letting you know now. And so, like, he has been fighting vampires for many decades and stuff. He reveals at some point in time, like, you know, when vampire activity kind of went down, he just kind of like gave up, moved to like America and everything. But he's been like preparing for the day, because as he get older, he can't really fight like he used to. And so when he was in like a German death camp type thing, geez, man, he went through it. They separated him from his mother. I'm pretty sure they killed her. They made him start working for them and stuff. Then when Idris found out that he's a carver and everything, he has Sarzakian carve that of the master's coffin, 9 feet tall and everything, some type of ancient like vampire design. And that's where the master keeps sorrel and his worms and stuff. So technically, Sarzakian is partly to blame for all of this. After, like, you know, he watches every night because the master likes to go into the camp and kill a bunch of like the Jewish people and turn them into vampires and feed off them. One night when he was afraid of getting attacked, he tried to attack the master with a knife. The master decided he was going to break his hands, both of them. So all his fingers are like broken. Then one day, like when the Germans are separating the people, they put them in different groups. And sadly, Sarzakian was put in a group that's supposed to like die and get buried in the ground. They had to dig their own like hole in the ground, man. Like it was terrible and stuff. Then the Americans came in and helped free some people and stuff with the war. And so they fled. And he was unable to climb the barbed wire fence. So the other like Jewish people had to like help him and stuff. If you watch this is so heartbreaking because his fingers are broken and like he's crying and all this other stuff. This is why Semitism, or whatever you call it, like is terrible and people should not do it. This is why people like Kanye West, Ice Cube, Nick Cannon, all these other like rappers and stuff, they are despicable for what they talk about, all that smack towards the Jewish people, all because they can't get over the past of when they was growing up. Like the Holocaust was a dire thing. People need to have respect. You know, I don't get this stuff. Like when you watch this stuff recreated in television, it is not a joke. So basically, when he got a little bit older, he married a woman, but he was obsessed with killing the master and killing that of like other vampires. The master tricked him, and since he was away from his wife, like the master likes to hide underground, so he had to go down in the well and everything and crawl through like a little small tunnel. And the master's all like, "Oh, you're far from home and everything." He knew what was up. He tried to get back to that the top of the well, but Idris was there and pulled the rope up from the well. He had to climb his way out like rock climbing. His horse was like eaten and everything. So he had to run all the way back to his home. Once he gets there, his wife had been turned and he had to put her down. He cut out her heart and he keeps her heart in a jar. The heart is disgusting. When you get turned into a vampire, I'll explain that a little bit later. So he uses her worms and everything to stay immortal. He feeds her blood. So he recruits a bunch of people to help him fight vampires. But a lot of people don't believe him. They think he's just a crazy old man. F. Goodweather. He is one of the heads of the CDC. I've already explained that in the first episode. Basically, he's controlling. Him and his wife are separated, getting divorced. He has joint custody of his son. He's never able to spend time with his son because of work. And he's dating his co-worker, Nora. In the book, he tries to make advances to her, but he doesn't really succeed. But in the show, they are dating. His best friend is John Kent. But when John betrays him, he wants nothing to do with him until John dies. He at first believes this is just a viral plague, but then when he's told it's vampires, he doesn't believe it until all the craziness starts to happen. And then he starts to believe it. When one of the passengers on the plane turns into a vampire, he has to kill him. He is seen on video dragging his body and killing him and stuff. So they like put out like a warrant on him, and the FBI are looking for him. When he does the autopsy and everything, he finds out what the vampires are made out of. Nobody will believe him. His wife, boyfriend turns him into the FBI. He gets arrested. When he's gonna show them, like, what all like the vampires are about, they get attacked and the city goes into chaos. Basically, him and other people, they start fighting vampires. He starts off as a very nasty, disgusting like character, but then after a while you sympathize with him and he turns good because he wants to stop the vampires. He hasn't drank in like 15 years, and him and his son start to bond a little bit more once they have to go into hiding, fighting the vampires and stuff. But after his wife goes down and turns into one, he starts drinking again. Nora. She is his co-worker and she works for the CDC, and she is like F's lover and everything. Her mom has Alzheimer's and she puts her mom in a home. Once the vampires attack, she takes her mom and she goes into hiding with everybody else. But it becomes very difficult because her mom is very difficult. Extremely difficult. When Sarzakian place gets broken into by the vampires, the mom is the first casualty. This causes her to be upset and wants to fight the vampires even more. When they first had to fight a vampire, she decided, thinking they're still human, and did not want to fight no more, and she just leaves. Until, of course, all the vampires start attacking, and then that's when she starts to, join up with the rest of the people. Kelly, she is the ex-wife of F, and she loves her son to death. Her son is Zach. She's dating a guy, and basically when the guy turns like into a vampire and everything, he comes home, he attacks her, but he does not end up stinging her. What happens is she hits him extremely hard with like a blunt object. It busts his skin open, the worms come out. One of the worms go into her eye, turns her into a vampire. At the end of the season, she tries to attack her son and F and everything, and so he shoots her and the son stabs her in the stomach. But this is not enough to kill her because you have to take her head. And she leaves and stuff. John Kent, he is working for the vampires. He's also working for the CDC. His wife has cancer. He could not get her the specialist that he need. So the vampires arranged it with the money from that of Palmer. And so he's the one who lets the coffin along with Gus like cross I think like state lines or something like that. And this is when all the craziness happens. Guilty, he tells Goodweather and Nora. They don't want nothing to do with him no more. And then when Goodweather is framed and everything for that one murder, and the CDC director, calls the FBI on him and stuff. He doesn't even try to tell the CDC dude, like, look, I know vampires are real and everything. But then he ends up trying to help, but he ends up getting stung and he dies. And good riddance, because after he wanted them to forgive him and everything, he still helped the vampires. He helped dispose of a body and stuff. And then when the vampires started coming all out, his wife didn't want to believe him and she leaves him. But he dies, good riddance, because he betrayed his friends. And he's voiced by Raphael from the 2012 Ninja Turtles. Dutch. Dutch is a bisexual British hacker. Palmer hires her to basically shut down the internet and everything so that no word can get out. So her and her hacker team, they do that. When all craziness happens in episode 8, she flees with the rest of the group and then she confesses to them what she did and everything. And so her and the exterminator, they start to bond. She goes back to Palmer trying to get the internet back on, but he basically tells her, you're worthless and all this other crap, I own you. She hits him and then he wants her disposed of, but Palmer's security guard lets her go because he doesn't like what his boss has become, especially with all these vampires. She decides that if she can't get the internet back on, then what she can do is one of those emergency broadcast things. It's like, this is not a test and blah, blah, stuff like that. And she has Goodweather give a 45-second message about the vampire showing proof. This causes the CDC person who works with the president to quarantine the city. But Palmer, who's now healed and everything, throws her off a ledge. And so he has her assistant type dude take over. So now nobody's really believing anything, but even though the city is in chaos with the riots and stuff. Fett, he is a rat exterminator. Basically, he just does his job and he sees hundreds of rats coming out of the sewers. He goes down in there and he sees the vampires and barely makes it out of there. After that, he uses UV lamps and he meets the rest of the group in episode 8. And he pretty much just joins up with them and helps them fight vampires. He really just doesn't care and he'll straight up kill them because he wants to live. He starts a flirtmance with that of Dutch. He does not get along with that of Goodweather. And pretty much he creates the flash bomb grenades with the UV lights that kills the vampires and stuff. He's very blunt and a bit sarcastic and stuff. Zach, he is the son of Goodweather, and basically he's just this nice little boy who loves both his parents. And when his mom goes missing for a very long time, he's very worried. He always has to stay in Sarzakian's basement whenever they all going and trying to kill the master and stuff, and he has to watch that of Nora's mother. He has to go get her some cigarettes. He gets into a little trouble with some people who are looting the place. But he gets very heartbroken when his mom is that of a vampire. And then there's Gus. Gus is a very unique character. He's a gangster. He's a thug. He loves his mom to death. And if you disrespect his mom, he will straight up try to kill you. he's out of prison and everything. He doesn't want to go back. He works for the vampires. He keeps telling them, I'm not working for y'all no more. I don't want to go to jail. But basically, he is the one of the main reasons why the vampires took over New York and stuff. Cause he's the one who drove the coffin over state lines just for some money. He loves money. He steals stuff. He sells stuff. And his brother, he can't really stand. He has this one best friend, and they do everything together. All this like gangster stuff and stealing cars and all this other stuff. Basically, they get arrested because when the vampires start attacking, a police officer sees him attack a man, but it's a vampire. He's in prison. He's on the bus being transported with him and his friend, but his friend got cut by the vampires, got stung. He is a natural born vampire killer. Like, he can kill him with any kind of like object in his hand. He can wrestle them. He's very good at avoiding their like stinger and stuff. But then one time when he's trying to get out the city because his mom got turned to a vampire, he does not kill her. He kills, however, his brother. But like when it comes to his mom, he's heartbroken and he decides he's gonna steal from this other gangster. And so he steals tons of guns, tons of money. But then like when he realizes this person gave him tons of money for transporting a bunch of like carts and stuff, conveyor like carts or whatever you call them, he wants in on it and wants more money. Turns out there are tons of vampires in there. The other gangster did not know. As they're like fighting the vampires, they both start shooting at each other. But then a odd thing happened. A secret group of vampires with their consciousness kidnaps him. And they want him to fight for them. I'll get into that a little bit later. Let's get into the show. So when you turn into a vampire, like I said before, it decays your skin. It makes your hair fall out. It gives you a 6-foot long tongue. Only about 3 feet will stick out. For the most part, or 4, but the rest of it's inside your body. Also, for some bizarre reason, it makes men's shillelaghs either fall off or revert back inside them. I don't know why. It's never explained, but they have no genitalia down there. I don't know why. And stuff. It mutates your insides and everything. It reconfigures your insides. Your lungs are different, your liver is different, your heart is different, everything's different with you. And your blood, like I said before, turns white pussy with worms all in there. And so basically, Goodweather and Nora, they're still investigating this phenomenon. And it's getting to the point where things are getting a little crazy. All the survivors of the plane crash don't want to stay in quarantine. They leave, but they're slowly turning. See, the master killed 200 something people on the plane, but left about 4 or 5 of them alive, so they could basically just spread the disease more. The ones that are dead still reanimated and turned into vampires. As the survivors starting to see themselves change, they're not sure what the world is going on. Like when the one dude loses his shillelagh, he's just kind of like, and stuff. Oh, Regina King is in this. She's in about 3 episodes, and then she's just written completely out. And she has a teeny tiny role. She's basically the manager of this one rock singer who was on the plane and it crashed, and he got turned into a vampire. I don't know why she has such a tiny role, but she does. And so, like, all the people are slowly turning. They still have a little bit of consciousness. And like I said before, the first thing they want to do is be around loved ones. And so then they start, like, infecting people over and over. And then so when so many vampires are taking out over the city, there are thousands down in the sewer. And basically it's riot time. People are going crazy in the streets. Cars are on fire. People are looting. It's terrible above as the vampires are attacking. As all of this is going on, there is no internet. But for some reason, people aren't driving out of town and like, telling other people in the city so they can bring in the SWAT. The police are little to no help because they're getting attacked and it is chaos. Sarzakian is locked up in prison. Well, not prison, but jail. And so like Ernest, he goes to visit him, taunt him. That's like his little pet. He hates Sarzakian and Sarzakian hates him. It's like cat and mouse, and they're both always constantly trying to kill each other. So when Sarzakian gets out, Nora, talks to him, but he feels she's too weak-minded in the head and doesn't want to kill vampires. And so he hired somebody to get like a list of all the survivors on the plane, and he's gonna go pay them a visit. He's gonna kill them and any family member that got affected. The reason why they go back home and want to be with their loved ones is what the master does to the vampires. Is so since they're infected, they're gonna go home to loved ones and infect other people. It's a pretty gruesome show. You see constant people getting their heads chopped off, people getting shot in the face, vampires are stinging little kids in the throat. It is gruesome. This is more R-rated than most R-rated movies and stuff. And so like while all this is going on, eventually they meet up with Good Weather and they have to like kill vampires. And Sarzakian tells them, you always cut off their heads and then you burn them. You never let the worms touch you and stuff. And so in these first couple of episodes, it's 13 episodes. And the first couple, like 3 or 4, is very, very, very slow burn. Like you're kind of bored almost until everything starts kicking up with the chaos. And then everything starts to paint a bigger picture. And then it starts to get really good. It's very unique and interesting to see the survivors of the plane crash infect their loved ones as the loved ones are coming home. Never get attached to them because they're not going to last. And even when you think one of them's going to last in the show, they don't. The Dominican maid, her kid, all these other people. Now, the Dominican maid, she actually does survive, but we don't see her no more. See, one of the survivors has children and a husband. The husband's a businessman out of town. The kids are with the maid. Also with the vampires. If they're in front of a mirror, their body tends to flicker in the mirror reflection and everything. It's really interesting. So instead of being invisible, they like flicker and everything. That's how you know one's a vampire and stuff. And so and then their eyelids do a weird flicker type thing. The maid sees this, gets the kids on out of there. And then they go back to her daughter's home. But the daughter's all like, we ain't keeping these kids, you send them back. So then they go back. But then the mom turns into a vampire and she stings the maid's daughter. As they're all about to get killed, something strange happened. A group of vampires with their conscience dressed as military men come in. They have modified guns with silver. Silver is one of the things that can kill them. And then they check all the kids and the maid, but they see the daughter's been hit and they kill her. And so basically they're the ones who recruit Gus at the end of the season. And it was kind of interesting because they showed it very early in the season and then they disappear. And it was kind of like, who are they and how are they able to talk and stuff? So anyway, Sarzakian and everything, he said, his plan is to recruit a bunch of people to help him fight vampires. He'll try to recruit anybody, even the taxi cab driver and stuff. And so, he's extremely old, but he will swing that sword and everything and chop your head off. But he's so old, he moves so slow that's why he needs to recruit people and stuff. His sword is interesting. It's a cane. It has a curved handle, and it's either a snake or a fox or something. After a good while, the doctor comes to his senses, and he starts vampire hunting with Sarzakian. And so they get Zach and everything in episode 9. And so Sarzakian wants to teach Zach everything he knows about vampire, has him read the books. This upsets Good Weather, the father, and everything. Now things are made very difficult because Nora's mom has Alzheimer's. It affects her so much that one time Nora is just like, she like screw it, and she just bangs like F and everything. And so like at this point in time, they're looking for Kelly, but they can't find her. Zach is able to track her cell phone. F is now basically doing a scavenger hunt. He finds the cell phone, but he finds a homeless woman that has it. She shows him where she found it and everything. Turns out, like I said before, Kelly's boyfriend infected her and stuff because the worm just got in her eye, and that was all it took. So then after that, she starts feeding. She attacks her friends. She attacks her friends' kids. It is chaos while everybody's looting in the streets. Gus, let's see, like I said before, his best friend ended up getting affected when they're on the bus. Gus is responsible for a lot of this stuff, along with Jim Kent, not John Kent, Jim Kent. I was thinking of Superman. And and it's just like he doesn't care and everything. He just cares about his mom, and he tries to get out the city. And he gets recruited by those vampires. He tries to escape them, but they stop him. He stops once he sees the ancient ones. They're vampires, completely butt naked, and they're on gurney type beds, sitting upright, and they have like tubes in their back, and you see blood coming through the tubes. I have no, and it's kind of how it feeds them. They're asleep. They stay asleep. If they wake up, they will have to feed and everything. And so the vampire dudes tell him that you're a natural born killer and everything, and we need you and stuff. Now, when it comes to Gus, Gus is an odd character. He's always doing his own thing in the show, and he rarely hangs out with that or share screen time with the main cast. I always felt it was kind of odd. Like, why is he there? Because it's weird. So it's like, he works for the vampires. He rarely hangs out with the vampires. He's only met Idris like probably like twice or something like that. And then he mostly just hangs out with his friend. And as they're going on their own little adventure. And so like, the only group member he talks to is Jim Kent, because he's working for the vampires too. Then he meets Zach when Zach gets into some trouble and some people try to like hurt him when they're looting the store, and he tells them to like get on out of there. Other than that, he has never met the rest of the main cast in the entire first season. Like I said, he's on his own adventure. It's weird. It's like that in every season. And I never understood that until the fourth, when he actually interacts with the entire group. And I just never understood, like, why introduce this character that's very interesting and stuff, but have him do his own thing on the show. Like, normally in a show, you'll have them interact with the rest of the cast, but he never does. And so basically, they keep fighting the vampires, and then so they are trying to go after the master. Sarzakian feels like if you kill the master, then maybe it will kill all the vampires and stuff. And so they're constantly going down the sewer, tracking the vampires. Like I said before, the vampires like to crawl through a tiny crawl space tunnel, and they like to go to a bigger place. This is the part that gets very intense. They all have to squeeze through this little tunnel thing. Some of them get stuck. Sarzakian is really old, and vampires are behind them. Once they get to the main part, Goodweather starts to hear a voice. The master is able to manipulate people's voices and make them lure them to do whatever he wants. When all heck breaks loose and everybody has to fight the vampires, Sarzakian is distracted because the master talks to him and it hurts his head for some reason. And it's never explained why. And so they fight, but they lose. The master gets away. This causes Sarzakian to go nuts. He takes like a blunt instrument and he destroys the coffin and everything. And he's just telling everybody like, piss off, leave him alone, he don't nothing to do with y'all, stuff like that. Like, he flipped out. And then so Nora sees the heart in the jar. She wants to know what it is, but he's all like, just leave me alone. I want to be left alone. So she just basically leaves him alone. And so like then he explains what happened to like his wife and stuff like that. His place gets attacked. Palmer takes his wife's heart and everything. And so like pretty much like Palmer's bodyguard doesn't want to work for him no more. He's all like, "You gone nuts and everything with these vampires and stuff." And so, like I already told you before, we get some heartbreaking stuff with Sarzakian's wife and everything from back in the day. And so now they have to keep going on the move and everything, so the vampires won't like catch them and stuff. And there's basically now I remember. Um, there's one final fight with the master. They all fighting them and everything. And so like everything's going bad. They're getting their butts kicked. They're running out of bullets. And then they finally like start shooting at the master. He gets weak. He goes outside. He's getting burnt to death. As that's happening, all the vampires stop and they walk backwards out the door for some bizarre reason. And then the master escapes through the shadows and stuff. And Sarzakian assumed sunlight would kill the master, but it did not. So now they have no idea how they're gonna stop all these vampires and stuff. And that's basically it. Like I said before, this is very unique. This is very different. I really enjoy this series and stuff. And it came out on FX. It's on Hulu. Every season is on Hulu. The first two seasons are 13 episodes. The third is 10. And I forget how many the last one is. I like every season except for the last season. I feel like after the third, when all the bad stuff starts to happen, they just didn't really know what direction they was going to take it. It's based off of 3 books. They went to 4 seasons, and it's just kind of like, I don't like time jumps and stuff. And it just was kind of lackluster, the 4th season was for me and stuff. That wasn't that spooky. Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.